What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network. He is Andrew Destin. I am Noah Hiles. It's been a while, partner.
Glad to have you back, man.
Yeah, I've been on vacation. We've had some just weird times throughout the last couple of weeks where we haven't got a pod up, but we're back in it now. A lot to cover. Pirates take 2 of 3 in a very important, I would argue, probably the most important series of the season up to this point. All things considered, you're in the middle of June. It's a division rival who had the same record coming into this series. And, anytime you can win a series over an opponent in your division, similar standing, similar spot in the wild card race, gain some ground and some confidence, I think that's a big series win. And that was the case here, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, it was this series. The other one I was grappling with was in mid-May when they went to Chicago.
Yeah.
Coming off the 2 out of 3 they lost to the Brewers and got embarrassed where Martin Perez gave up 5 home runs. And then you had Paul Skenes with 6 no-hit innings. That was the only series that came in mind.
Yeah.
Equally, if not more important, what we just saw this past homestand, these first 3 games.
We've got a lot to get into, but before we do, we need to talk about our show's presenting sponsor, which is the North Shore Tavern. If you love baseball, you'll love the North Shore Tavern. Their interior is wall-to-wall Pirates. There are appetizers, entrees, cocktails, and of course, steak and seafood on a sizzling lava stone. Open every day. The North Shore Tavern is across from PNC Park and it is Pittsburgh's home for steak on a stone. I think I'm heading to the North Shore Tavern after we record this podcast.
Yeah, I might need to tie one on.
Yeah, why not? We got an off day tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right, so Andrew, we've got 6 topics to get into here for the show. I'll let you start us off. Which is the number one priority here to talk about when we highlight this series?
This series, I feel like it's got to be starting pitching.
It is,
yes. I mean, first off, I'll give the flowers to Bailey Falter. He's a guy who had kind of struggled the last 2 times out, gotten hit around.
Yeah.
Got hit around a little, but bounced back, 7 innings, 2-run ball. It was the offense that didn't help him out, which I know we'll get into later.
Yep.
But Paul Skenes looked great,
Yep.
and Mitch Keller topped it off in 90-plus degree heat, day game, efficient, 7 innings, went back out there for the 8th. I thought the starting pitching, I mean, you asked the question to Shelton, he agreed. I mean, pitching-wise, this is as good as it's looked all year, right?
Yeah, it is. And, I'll use this to piggyback into the bullpen as well. I think, in general, this was the best the pitching staff has looked in a 3-game series.
Yeah.
The starting pitching was great, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more real quick. With Skenes, I think his best start as a pro. I mean, you can talk about the 6 no-hit innings against the Cubs, but the way he was challenged Monday and showing the full repertoire, battling and getting ahead of guys and just making them guess, and then to bring the fastball back later on, chef's kiss. Bailey Falter, like you said, responded and through one of his better outings of the season. And Mitch Keller, holy cow. This is an all-star. Yeah. This is the ace of the staff. They've given out 3 extensions, Andrew, in the last 3 years. And right now, Mitch Keller looks to be the best money spent. And that's no slight at Brian Hayes or Brian Reynolds. I think those were 2 really good investments as well. But just looking at what Mitch Keller has to offer, complementing these young arms, and there's more young arms on the way in the next couple of years, this is going to be the rock, right? The solid piece that, young arms are going to come up. Some of them will get hurt. Some of them are going to go through rookie, growing pains. But this is the solid guy who, even on his worst day, he's going to give you a chance to win. So the starting pitching's been great. The bullpen had an excellent series as well, though, Andrew. Carmen Majinski's really coming around, I think. Colin Holderman, Aroldis Chapman, David Bednar, that's the 1-2-3 punch that they hoped would be.
Yep.
It took 2 months to get there, but finally everyone's kind of firing at the same time. And at first it was the bullpen looked really good in the beginning of the season. And then as April progressed, it was the starting pitching. And then the bullpen completely fell off a cliff in May. But now you have all assets of this team. You take away a couple of bad Ben Heller outings, and this bullpen's been lights out in June, and you saw it at full force in this series, helping complete these great outings from the starters. 3 shutout innings on Monday, 2 shutout innings Tuesday, and 2 more today. So great stuff from the bullpen. So we talked about the starting pitching, the bullpen. What else do you want to get into?
A little Brian Reynolds chatter.
Yeah, we'll keep with the good stuff.
Yeah, we'll keep with the good. Then we'll go to the bad.
All right.
Good, bad, and ugly. Kind of fall in that format, I guess.
We don't do that anymore.
No, okay. That's banned. But Brian Reynolds, ties his career high with a 17-game hitting streak. it's a little fearful because it's something I'm writing about. But when he was at 16 games there going in the bottom of the 8th, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't going to happen. Maybe the streak's going to snap. There goes the story. And then he deposits one to center field. I mean, he's just locked in right now. The thing that stands out to me is the lower half. He had spread out the legs for a little while there as a timing mechanism so that his head was staying constant, so that his eye level wasn't changing. Now he's in a spot right now where the timing is on. I asked him in an interview about him against fastballs. This is the best that he's hit fastballs in terms of batting average in his MLB career. And he said, when I'm on time for the fastball, everything else just kind of comes naturally. That's where he's at right now. That was a changeup that he deposited, 415, 420 to straightaway center. I mean, he is on time for everything right now. He's hitting everything in sight. And it's June, so he loves June. We know that.
Yeah, and the thing with Bryan Reynolds that I think where you get the most value at the plate is his floor is so much higher than everyone else's on this team.
Yeah.
Where, his slumps are a week.
Yeah.
They're not 6 series. They're not a month long. He might not be playing to his full potential, but even when he's playing poorly, he's still around league average at the plate. And so whenever he gets hot, you'll see the numbers spike up dramatically because they were never terrible to begin with. And he was rather pedestrian in April and May, but now we're seeing him take off. And, I don't think it's out of the question when you look at the numbers compared to people in his position. This is a guy who might end up being an all-star, Andrew. When you compare his numbers to other National League outfielders, there aren't a lot of good National League outfielders right now. All of them have moved to the infield in recent years, and a lot of them are hurt. So Bryan Reynolds, he's on a tear right now with his 10th home run. His OPS plus is solid. I mean, he's playing great baseball, hitting well from both sides of the plate. A lot to like from him. Not much to like from the rest of the team right now. Rowdy Tellez, I will say, had another good series. 2 doubles on Monday. A double today that...
Hey, it was only ever going to be a double.
Yeah, it was always going to be a double. You're right. For the people saying that should have been a triple, watch Rowdy Tellez run. And that's no slight against Rowdy. But I think he would even admit that, like Shelton said after the game, there's no scenario where Rowdy's getting the third. So it's a double. It was a dramatic double, one that should have been easy, but nonetheless. So Tellez is hitting the ball fairly well still. But the rest of this team, McCutcheon's cooled off a little bit. Nick Gonzalez had a less than stellar series, I would say. Connor Joe is really returning back to earth. They've got to get more production out of this lineup. And this is something where, and I'm writing about it for Thursday, I think the need's clear. It's offense right now, Andrew, because you're not getting it consistently from everybody. You're getting a couple of guys every few weeks who are hot, and the rest of the team's just kind of straggling along.
Yeah, and I think this next few week stretch, that's really what this is going to all be about. I want to call it a trial period, but to some degree it is you gave Rowdy Tellez that ability to have a few months to work through a slump to figure out, is this guy going to be here in September? And I'm not saying one way or another if he is, but he's still here, which shows that the franchise still believes in him. That being said, I think that applies to the entire offense outside of your key contributors like a Bryan Reynolds, like Rowdy Tellez to a lesser degree, but Nick Gonzalez at second base. He had a great month.
Yeah.
Can that stay consistent?
Right.
Can he continue that? I bring all that up to say that I think this next few weeks is going to be a stretch to determine how are they going to proceed at the deadline. Is the number one priority get an outfield bat because you're getting basically nothing out of center field? Is it to get a corner infielder because Brian Hayes has really struggled at the plate, showing signs of progress, but when you consider what he's done, Connor Joe's struggling, and the way that Rowdy Tellez mostly struggled, maybe a corner infielder is the solution. There's a black hole at catcher in terms of offensive production, especially with Joey Bart being hurt. So there's just a lot of spots to go to there. But I agree, Noah. Offense is struggling right now on the whole. 6 runs against the Reds in 3 games. I know they were good pitchers, but not a good series for the offense.
Let's talk more about the catching, Andrew. Right now, it looks like they have 4 number 2 catchers on this team. Yasmani Grandal, they win when he plays.
Yeah.
You could say that about him.
Sure.
Right? And the defensive metrics aren't bad, but the offense just isn't there. Henry Davis is on the concussion list, and to be frank, I did not notice much of a difference from Henry Davis at the plate after returning from AAA. Yeah. It's a lot of the same. The home run was nice, but some different swing changes, but it's the same player to a big degree. And I know he needs more reps, but at the same time, you're in a position where if you keep winning, you can separate yourself from more than half of the National League. Is this the time to do that? Is this the time to trot out a Henry Davis and give him reps when he's clearly struggling? You look at, on the other side of the league, the Tigers sent Torkelson down because they said, look, we're not in a place for you to keep going out there and trying to figure this out here. And when you look, delays here right now, and Joey Bart might not be back much longer.
Yep.
Who are the two catchers on this team? And is it worth bringing another guy into the mix and maybe offloading a Yaz Grandal or DFAing a delay or somebody like that?
Yeah.
They really don't have the ultimate answer right now behind the plate.
Yeah, and I think that's what this next week or two, and I mentioned it with the trial period across the board there, but I think that's really what this stretch is. And it's a shame for Henry because I think, I'm extrapolating here. This is not something that I've, heard from the horse's mouth or anything like that, but Henry Davis being called up at the time that he was, it kind of coincided with Joey Bart being out for a significant period of time. Jason DeLay was in the minor leagues still rehabbing. That was the golden opportunity for Henry Davis to get 2, 3, 4 weeks of reps, splitting it with Yasmani Grandal, and you could get a better sample size of where is he at with these swing changes. But with concussions, it's such a slippery slope. We don't know how soon he'll return. When he does, then you have to take into account, well, he's coming back from a concussion. Does he go back to AAA to get a few more at-bats before he comes back up? It just messes up with the timing altogether. You don't have a lot of time to work with. It's June 19th. The trade deadline is a little over a month. So I think the clock is ticking. Whenever Joey Bart comes back, there are going to be some very serious conversations.
On the note of Joey Bart coming back, he's one of a handful of guys, Andrew, who aren't far from a return and could make this team better. I mean, you look at Bart, who's been working out on the field pregame.
Yep.
There's been a handful of guys who've thrown bullpens: Quinn Priester, Martin Perez, Ryan Baracchi, Marco Gonzalez. I mean, help is kind of on the way for this club, especially in the bullpen. You get the depth there with Bart as well. Who is the biggest additional piece they will get back by, you think, maybe the end of the month? We'll say before the trade deadline.
Yep.
Of all those names that I just listed there. So Baracchi, Gonzalez, Perez, Priester, Bart. Who's the biggest guy you can even throw in G1 Bay, Alika Williams was activated. Who's the biggest guy they'll get back before the deadline from injury that's kind of a nice addition?
For me, it's Marco Gonzalez.
Okay.
If he comes back, when he does come back, he just completed his third bullpen session. Next is a sim game or live BP, which I believe is slated to happen on Friday. So we'll have updates for you guys on that when that takes place. But from there, it would be rehab assignment. I assume he's probably about 2 weeks out, maybe 3 weeks out. Hasn't pitched competitively since early April, but he looked tremendous at the start of the season as just a guy who can eat innings. I say that because, now with Paul Skenes and Jared Jones here, there's not going to be many open spots in the rotation. Those two have those. Mitch Keller has his. Bailey Falter has his. Right? So there's only one spot available. I imagine Quinn Priester would go down to AAA whenever he's healthy, and Martin Perez has more experience as a relief guy than Marco Gonzalez does. So as beneficial as Perez would be, I think Gonzalez coming back, he's the guy that they would insert into that rotation so long as he's healthy. And his pedigree. I mean, he's certainly had some better results in recent years as a starter than I think you can say about Perez.
My pick would be Baracchi.
Yeah.
I think his injury is probably a little bit more worrisome in general, where something could flare up again after returning compared to Marco, where I think if Marco makes it back, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah.
But Baracchi just had, with the veteran presence, they've just got a little too much youth in the bullpen still. I will say, I'm encouraged with how Carmen has looked in recent weeks. And Hunter Stratton is down right now, but Kyle Nicholas is here and there still. I just think they're one or two bullpen arms away from being really what that was supposed to be this year. Ortiz has looked really good, and if Carmen is going to pitch like he did last year, that 3 on the back end is there. You add Baracchi into that mix, you've got a 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th right there. And then you've got short inning relief as well. That's looking like a weapon at that point. And granted, I don't know what you're going to get from Baracchi because it's been so long.
Yeah.
But if he can come back and be 75% as good as he was last year, that's all they really need from him.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have Chapman last year. They didn't even have Holderman for a lot of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have this version of Holderman last year. So I think he could be a nice little addition with a lesser workload, ease him in, and he could be a difference maker as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we got Tampa Bay Rays coming into town, Andrew. Your thoughts on this upcoming series for the weekend?
Kind of similar a little bit to the Reds in a lot of ways. It's a youthful team with a lot of speed. Caballero is leading the American League in stolen bases. He's a guy that I'm curious to watch up front and in person. But it's not the same Rays team that we've seen in past years. They're not quite as dominant, not quite as deep. But I'm curious to see how they fare on the base paths because they're similar to the Reds, a team that likes to get active there. And the Pirates did a decent job of keeping the Reds in check. So I'm curious to see how that fares. What about you?
I'm window shopping this series because the Tampa Bay Rays, they're not in the position of the likes of a Colorado Rockies, Miami Marlins, Oakland Athletics. But if you've followed baseball at all for the last 2 decades, you know that the Rays are never not selling.
Yeah.
They could be 10 games in first, and if they get an attractive deal, they'll deal a starter. It does not matter. And there's a lot of good bullpen talent here coming into town with Tampa with multiple years of control. They've got some position players, and I think it's safe to assume they're probably going to be selling some of it. And a little bit of a showcase here.
Yeah.
For some potential guys who have postseason experience and can bring value in a lot of ways. So the wins got to keep coming, but keep an eye on some of these guys from Tampa Bay. They might be looking good in black and gold not far from now. So that's all he's got. That's all I've got. He's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. The show is brought to you by the North Shore Tavern. Check out all of our work at post-gazette.com and keep tuning in to the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network for all of your Pittsburgh Post-Gazette sports coverage. Take care.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.